Sold. $3 to the man in the coat. The gavel cracked down like a gunshot, sharp against the sun-baked silence. Dust hung in the heat like breath that wouldn't exhale. The girl didn't look up, didn't flinch, just stood there, swaying on bruised feet, hands bound at the front like some guilty thing. Jonah Cobb didn't say a word. He just stepped forward, handed the coin stack to the auctioneer, silver slick with sweat from his palm, and reached for the frayed rope around her wrists. The townsfolk watched in the hush that comes when something sacred's been stepped on. $3, someone muttered from under a tobacco-stained hat. Reckon she ain't worth even that. Another spat. He ain't right in the head, said a third. Ain't been since the fire. Jonah didn't look at them, didn't look at anyone, just met the girl's eyes, wide, dark, unreadable, and cut the rope with a rusted knife from his belt. The girl blinked, didn't move. Come on, Jonas said. One word, low and dust-cracked. Then he turned, boots heavy on the wooden platform, and walked. She followed. The crowd split down the middle like a scar across the dirt, faces tight, eyes hungry. A dog barked once from under a water trough. Somewhere a fly buzzed near a dead thing. Jonah led her to his mule cart, loaded with little more than a half-empty sack of oats and a battered rifle wrapped in oilcloth. He offered no hand up. She climbed in slow, knees trembling, skirt torn near the hem. He didn't ask her name. She didn't offer it. The wheels groaned as they rolled out of town. They passed the saloon with its doors yawning open like a drunk's mouth. Past the jail, where Sheriff Lowe leaned on the railing and tipped his hat with a look that said, I'll be watching. Past the church, where old Reverend Bragg clutched his Bible like it might bite if he let it go. No one stopped them. No one waved. Out on the open trail, the silence stretched long between them. The mule plodded steady, swishing its tail against flies. Heat shimmered off the dry rocks, and far out across the prairie, buzzards circled something unseen. The girl didn't speak, just held the side rail of the cart and stared at the horizon like it might break apart and let her through. Jonah finally said, Ain't far now. She turned to him, not with hope, but caution, like a creature that had learned too well what kindness could cost. Why, she asked. Her voice was faint, accent lilting around the edges like worn silk. Why buy? He didn't answer right away, just pulled the reins a little when the mule drifted too near a jagged rock. Then, without looking at her, didn't sit right. That's all. The cart crested a rise, and the ranch came into view, what was left of it. Fences broken, barns sagging like a dying man's shoulders. The house, 2 stories once, now clung to the prairie like a stubborn ghost. Windows blank, one shutter dangling loose. A single windmill spun lazy in the breeze, creaking like it was tired of spinning. The girl stared. This yours? She asked. It was. Jonah climbed down, hitched the mule, motioned toward the porch without words. She followed, steps cautious but not fearful. Not now. Inside, the air was cooler, smelled of dust and old wood. One chair, one cot, a stove with rust on its belly, a shelf with a tin cup, a fork, and a Bible that hadn't been opened in years. Jonah pointed to the wash basin. There's water. Drink slow. She did. He watched. He didn't say much else that day. Just showed her where the spare blanket was, where she could sleep if she wanted. Didn't close the door to her room. Didn't touch her. Didn't ask. At sundown, they sat on the porch. Him with a tin cup of coffee, her with nothing, legs drawn up, eyes flicking toward him, then away again. Your name? He asked, voice like gravel under boot. May. He nodded once, like that settled something. Wind stirred dry grass. The sky turned blood orange. Coyotes cried far off in the canyon. You own this land? She asked. He looked out across the plains. I reckon it owns me. She said nothing after that. Later, after dark, she lay awake on the cot, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. She listened for footsteps, breath, danger. Heard nothing but the wind outside and the creak of the house settling into its own old bones. And just before sleep claimed her, she heard him, in the next room, whispering. She couldn't catch the words. Just a name, maybe, or prayer. And then silence. They say he bought her for $3. But what they never tell you is what she gave him in return. Not with words. Not with touch, just with the look in her eyes, like she saw the ghost in him and stayed anyway. That's how it begins. That's how it always begins. Don't touch that, Jonah said. May froze, hand halfway to the mantel. A cracked photograph sat there, the only thing without dust. A woman with dark hair. A little girl in a gingham dress. Both smiling like they didn't know the world would burn. May stepped back. Sorry. Jonah said nothing else. Just stood in the doorway, hat in hand, eyes like winter stone. Outside, the wind picked up, dragging sand across the porch with a hiss. Inside, the silence pressed thick against the walls, broken only by the ticking of a warped clock and the hum of heat off the stove. She went back to the kettle, poured water into a chipped bowl, and returned to scrubbing the floor. Knees raw, fingers stinging. She didn't ask why she was doing it. No one told her to, but the house felt too full of ghosts to sit still. Jonah watched her a while longer. Then he turned and walked out. The front door creaked, closed behind him. The corral gate groaned under his weight. Two posts leaned like old drunks, rope barely holding. The last of the cattle were gone years ago. Just scrub brush now and the mule. Even that was borrowed time. He hammered a nail into a fence post that wasn't worth saving. Not because it would hold, but because that's what a man did, kept patching the things that used to matter. May appeared beside him without a word, bucket in hand. You know what that's for? He asked. She nodded. Water. Don't take more than the barrel gives. River's dry. She nodded again, already heading toward the well. Nights came fast on the ridge. Red, then purple, then black. Coyotes skulked near the edge of the ranch, but never crossed the fence line, as if they knew something older than bullets lived there. May sat by the fire, needle in hand, mending an old shirt she found in a chest. Jonah sat across from her, cleaning his rifle. How long you been here? She asked. He didn't look up. Long enough. You had a daughter. He paused, one hand wrapped around the barrel. I did. Was she like me? No. The fire cracked. She laughed louder. One morning, the mule whinnied hard, loud, like something wrong was near. Jonah stepped outside, rifle in hand. On the ridge, two riders sat still atop pale horses. Dust cloaked their faces. One raised a hand, not to wave but to point. At the house. Jonah didn't raise his gun, just stared until the riders turned, vanished into the draw. May stood behind him. Who are they? Men you don't want to meet. Looking for me? Maybe. Will they come back? He didn't answer. Later, while May hung clothes in the wind, she found a hole in the line. A single wire cut clean. She followed it with her eyes, to the ridge, where hoof prints trailed into the dry earth. She didn't scream, just went inside, found the knife Jonah had given her, and slipped it into her boot. That night, thunder rolled across the plains, but no rain came. Jonah sat with a lantern beside a small trunk. May watched him from the stairs. You were a soldier, she said. His shoulders didn't move. Not for a long time. It's a name in town. Hawk. Hawk of something. Shiloh. What's that mean? He opened the trunk. Inside, folded blue cloth. A medal. A letter worn soft by time. He didn't touch any of it. It means I was good at killing men from far away. May didn't blink. Are you still good? He looked up then, eyes catching the lantern light like cold steel. I pray I never have to find out. At dawn, May walked the perimeter of the ranch. She touched the fences, counted the loose boards, noticed how the dirt near the porch held too many boot prints. Someone was here, she said when Jonah joined her. He looked once and nodded. They're warning us. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a thin shard of metal, sharpened from an old horseshoe. I can help. Jonah studied her. Not as a child, not as something broken. Can you run? She shook her head. Not again. Good, he said. Then stay close. That evening, May chopped onions. Jonah repaired the barn door. The ranch moved like it had purpose again, but both kept glancing west, as if the wind carried breath that didn't belong. And deep into the night, after even the stars had turned cold, Jonah stood alone by the grave markers behind the house. 2 stones. No names. May watched from the window. Saw him kneel. Saw him bury something, small and folded, in the dirt. A paper bird. She didn't ask, but she began folding one of her own. They say the ghost ranch was empty, haunted, lost in the wind. But I tell you, it breathed again when that girl walked its fences and that old man picked up a hammer. Some houses ain't dead, just waiting for the right souls to come back through the door. That's the truth of it. That's the middle of the tale. The first shot split the morning. Jonah dropped to one knee behind the corral post, rifle raised, eyes already tracking the direction it came from, the ridge. May hit the dirt beside the trough, dust cloud curling around her. She didn't scream, didn't freeze, just crawled fast to the barn door, knife already drawn. 3 riders stood above the ranch, black silhouettes against the pale sky, rifles slung lazily, like they weren't worried who saw. Jonah spat. Figures. The lead rider hollered down. We ain't come for a fight, old man. Jonah stepped out from the post, rifle low but ready. Could have fooled me. The second rider grinned. Just want what's ours. You got nothing here. The third one raised his rifle just an inch. She does. Jonah's eyes narrowed. Ain't yours. She was bought property, the man sneered. We paid more than $3 damn. You took her. She ain't property. The first rider barked a laugh. What is she then, huh? Your housemaid? Your whore? Your second chance. Jonah fired. The man dropped. Chaos. The other 2 scattered fast, one veering right, the other ducking behind the rocks. Bullets screamed through the canyon air. Jonah moved, boots thudding across dry earth. Eyes calm, breath steady, like this was just another job. Another war. From the barn, May burst out, blade in hand, sprinting for the tool shed. Stay down, Jonah shouted, eyes never leaving the ridge. I know, she yelled, already diving behind a haystack, fumbling for the hidden revolver he'd taught her to load. A shot rang out. Splinters exploded from the post inches from her head. She didn't blink. Jonah rolled behind the water barrel, counted the seconds, then popped up and fired once. The second rider dropped, legs shattered, screaming as he tumbled down the rocks. One left. Silence. Then the third voice echoed, sharp and mean. You ain't walking out of this, Cobb. You think they'll let a man like you keep her? She ain't yours to save. Jonah scanned the ridge. Nothing. Then he saw it. A flash of movement near the mesquite. He turned to May. You see him. She pointed. Left flank. Just past the boulder. Jonah nodded. Cover me, he said. May raised the revolver. Go. Jonah moved fast for an old man. Boots slamming into the dirt, rifle tucked tight. Bullets whined past his shoulder. May fired, steady, forcing the shooter down. Jonah climbed the ridge in a crouch, silent as dusk. Near the top, he paused. Listened. A whisper of breath. The faint click of metal. He stepped out fast, rifle raised, and met the third man's eyes. You should have stayed gone, Jonah said. The man grinned. We ain't the only ones coming. Jonah pulled the trigger. Dust settled. The ridge went still. Back at the house, May stood with the revolver lowered, hands trembling slightly now that it was done. Blood splattered her sleeve, not hers. Jonah limped up, shoulder bleeding from a graze. She ran to him. You're hurt. I've had worse. They're gone. He looked out over the ridge. For now, they buried the bodies behind the canyon, away from the graves that mattered. No crosses, just stones. By nightfall, the ranch smelled of gunpowder and sweat. The wind picked up dry, sharp cold. Jonah sat on the porch, pressing a cloth to his shoulder. May stood beside him, arms crossed tight. You said they weren't the only ones, she said. They're not. More men coming? He nodded. Could be tomorrow. Could be next week. She didn't speak for a long time. Then we prepare. Jonah looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw not a girl, but a fighter, maybe even a successor. You sure about that? I ran once, she said. I won't again. That night, they loaded bullets together at the table. May sharpened the blade she forged from scrap. Jonah cleaned the rifle with the reverence of a preacher tending a Bible. Neither smiled, but both had the same look in their eyes. A storm was coming, and this time they'd be ready. They say the ridge ran red that morning. Say the ghosts woke up, saw blood spilled on the dust, and whispered Jonah Cobb's name like a curse. But the girl, the one they tried to drag back, she stood taller than them all. Not behind him. Beside, that's where the legend was born. Right there in the blood on the ridge. Blood soaked through his shirt. Jonah staggered against the porch rail, eyes half-lidded, breath coming thin. The wound in his gut pulsed with each heartbeat, hot and deep, like fire trapped beneath the skin. "Sit," May said, guiding him down. He grunted, one hand pressed tight to the torn fabric. "I'm fine." "You're not." She tore a strip from her sleeve, pushed it against the wound. "You're losing too much. Just give me a minute." The porch boards were warm under him, sunlight washing across his boots. Flies buzzed somewhere in the distance. The silence of a fight finished, a storm passed. The last man had fallen in the dust half an hour ago. One bullet, straight through the neck. Jonah hadn't missed. Not once. May stood, face streaked with sweat and soot. Knife at her hip, revolver still holstered. "There'll be no more," she said. Jonah looked at her and smiled, faint. "Not for a while." Inside the house, she brought water and the old Bible. "Why the book?" he asked. She placed it in his lap. "You keep something inside." He opened it slow. The paper bird was still there, thin, yellowed, folded clean as the day it was made. Tiny handwriting on one wing. A child's name. A prayer on the other. He stared a long time. "She made it for you?" May asked. Jonah nodded. "My daughter. Before the fire." May knelt beside him. "I made one too." From her pocket, she drew a second bird. Crisp white. Clean folds. She placed it gently beside the old one. "No more running," she said. "No," Jonah whispered. That night, he couldn't eat. He tried. Sat at the table. Held the tin spoon. But the pain was too much. May sat with him anyway, quiet, eyes never leaving his face. "May," he said. She leaned in. "Get the deed." She blinked. "What?" He nodded toward the trunk in the corner. "Under the metals. You'll find it." She went, rifled through papers, and returned holding a yellowed parchment, dry as bone. Jonah dipped the pen, signed with a shaking hand, then handed it to her. "It's yours now." Tears welled in her eyes. "No. You kept it alive," he said. "You're the ranch now." "I can't." "You already did." Just before dawn, he passed. No words. No sound. Just a long breath that didn't come back. May didn't cry. Not at first. She sat beside him, held his hand, felt the heat fade from his skin, watched the sun rise through the window, painting gold over the land he loved. Then she rose, dressed in clean clothes, brushed the dust from the Bible, folded both paper birds, and placed them in his cold hand. She buried him next to the two stones behind the house, his wife and daughter. No marker, just a rock, just the wind. Weeks passed. The ranch lived. May rode the mule out to the fence line each morning, patch boards, clean troughs. Chickens returned. A goat. Then more. She spoke little. But people noticed. The girl they thought was bought was building something. Children from town came to trade eggs for milk. The sheriff rode by once, tipped his hat, said nothing, but never came back. And on the ridge, where the blood had dried, flowers bloomed. They say she never left. Built the land up with her own hands. Taught other girls how to shoot, how to fold birds from paper, how to plant something that outlives the men who tried to bury them. They say the ranch still stands, and if you ride far enough west, and the wind's just right, you'll see a paper bird nailed above the porch, fluttering in the breeze like a promise. That's how it ends. A girl no one saw coming, a man no one remembered right, and a place the world tried to forget. But legends don't die easy out here, not where the dust remembers everything.